a very brief introduction to myself. So I'm Tobias, working for Fraunhofer and working very closely with the European Commission on different projects, especially the Data Space Support Center that is initiated to support European data infrastructure in a sovereign way, of course. And I also see that in the Gartner hype cycle, sovereign AI was something that is directly behind the agentic AI. So it's definitely something that we need to consider because it has very much many strategical implications also for your company. And yeah, saying that, let me begin with a provocation, I would say. So every industrial company in this room is making a decision right now, whether you realize that or not. And the choice is not to, if you adopt AI, this is already over, as we can also see in the chat. The real question is whether you will become AI-enabled or AI-dependent. And this is not the same thing. One is a capability, and dependency is a liability, I would say. So sovereign AI is not about isolation. It's also not digital protectionism, but it's only about one thing. It's strategic room to maneuver in this digital world. So the ability to build, really deploy apps and also scale artificial intelligence within your critical processes without surrendering control of what makes you really competitive. It's your data, your IP, your engineering knowledge, and your freedom to choose any partner to be in your own team. And today I will give a brief overview over the architecture for how European industry can achieve this, not as aspiration, but really as a strategy. And when the next slide will come, then we can see also this overview here. So to frame the core problem a little bit more in the detail, so strategic dependency occurs when your ability to innovate, to comply with regulations, or simply to operate is contingent upon decisions. And that are made not by yourself, but technology providers over whom you don't have any influence. Providers whose priorities are shaped by a different regulatory environment, for example, a different geopolitical alignment, and a different commercial logic, of course. And this dependency manifests across three vectors, I would say. So first, compute. 92% of the AI data center GPU market is currently controlled by only one vendor. And this is not the market, it's a choke point by 2026. And AI centers will consume 90 terawatt hours annually. Access to compute is no longer an IT decision, it's a board level risk. Second, the models. So when you rely exclusively on black box frontier models, you cannot audit, you cannot explain their decisions to a regulator, you cannot customize them for your safety critical processes, and you cannot prevent your proprietary knowledge from leaking into their training data. And third, data itself. And this is what I'm also very much into when we do this European data infrastructure. Then the industrial data, so your industrial data, is really the relationship between like sensor logs, what CAD designs, engineering specifications, you name it. It's really the core of your business. And if this is processed for environments without strict sovereign controls or IP protection, for example, the value that insights you are generating may be captured by the platform and not by you in the end. So it's also some kind of brain drain. The question is basically quite simple. So who controls the chain of your intelligence in the end? But there's also good news. So in Europe, we are not longer only regulating, we are also building. And there was the AI Continent Action Plan launched in last year, April, that represents kind of fundamental pivot and from really setting guardrails to constructing capabilities in Europe. And the number tells the story in the end. So there are invested 200 billion for AI development, and 19 AI factories really are being constructed all over Europe, which are representing dynamic ecosystems that connect compute, data, and talents across the continent. And for 5 gigafactories, there will be spendings of 20 billion to build them, and each of them equipped with, I think, 100,000 processors, and that can train all your models, frontier models, we train. And finally, last year, October, there was also the the Apply AI strategy reframed, reformulated. And this reframed AI as what it truly is, a production factor alongside labor and capital as well. Not a research curiosity, not a pilot project, a fundamental input to industrial value creation. And the logic here is clear. Europe's industrial base is its greatest asset. We have many SMEs. We have a great engineering capacity. I think many of you represent also companies that achieved their many great innovations in the past, like Siemens, for example, Bosch, and all the other companies I can't name now. We don't need to win the race for the largest model, I think, but we need to win the race for the most relevant model, embedded into our engineering life cycles, our production systems, our supply chains. This is capability building, not catching up with some battle that we potentially already lost. So how do we operationalize sovereignty in the end? So it's not a slogan, but it's an architecture. The answer is to view AI as a layered stack and to make deliberate choices about where and how how to exert control at each layer. At the base, compute sovereignty. Your hardware must be governed by local laws, resilient to supply shocks, and capable of running sensitive workloads in its isolation. So no data sharing by the compute design. Above that, data sovereignty, what's kind of my topic, I would say. It's absolute control over collecting, classification, and processing of your own data. And no data should leave ever the sovereign perimeter for processing in a foreign data center or any other regulatory environment. Especially for highly regulated domains, this is really a core problem, I would say. The model sovereignty also, if you developed or own a model or you customized a model, then also the fine-tuning on your proprietary data, also the weight control and many other things are needed to be controlled by you, not by any other company, by any model provider or whosoever. You need to consider it as your IP, and over that, the application layer. So it's really how AI is embedded into your PLM, your CAD, your CAM systems without compromising security, or that Lucas also outlined, the interoperability of the systems. And wrapping everything on the top, there is the governance layer. So governance sovereignty. I would say it's comprising real-time auditing, AI bill of materials, technical paper, trail that proves compliance not as a burden, but as a feature. And sovereignty is not binary. This is also clear. So it's a spectrum from, let's say, 100% data sovereignty that, of course, comes with high costs, I would say. And maybe it's also not needed everywhere. But at every layer, it's really the question that needs to be answered, who controls this? And if the answer is not you, you have at least a strategic vulnerability that you can live with potentially, but maybe you want to reconsider your choices also. So now let me tell you where the real price is. The global race for consumer-facing large language models is well underway. We've seen that, and I said it earlier. I think this race has also already winners, and it's logic. But the next frontier of AI value creation is not consumer AI; it's industrial AI, and that's why we're here. This is where we see AI meeting the physical world: machines, production plants, supply chains. And this is where Europe has an asymmetric advantage. But why? Because industrial data is fundamentally different from the web-scraped text used to train GPT or Claude or you name it. Industrial data is sensitive, it's highly structured, it is deeply contextual, it represents also decades of engineering knowledge encoded in sensor logs, simulation results, technical drawings, and production parameters that are everywhere in Europe, in our small and medium-sized companies, but also in bigger corporations. So no Silicon Valley company has the access to this rich amount of data that we have in Europe. No foundational model is trained on the internet, can understand these constraints your shop floor has potentially, and tolerances of your components or the physics of your processes. You have this. You have this in your company currently. And companies that learn to activate this data with sovereign AI systems will create intelligence that is not just powerful, but relevant. Relevant to real-world production, relevant to regulatory compliance, but also to competitive differentiations that we, from my perspective, cannot get to the fullest extent in this consumer-facing large language models like Claude or GPT. So strategy without any execution is just aspiration. And this is precisely where our association also play our role. We can consider us as kind of translation mechanism between European policy ambition and real-world industrial adoption. Our mission operates across 5 pillars, I would say. So first, moving from pilots to productive systems and sharing this knowledge also within the association. Because many, as it was said earlier a few times, so I think it's potentially around 80%, I think Lucas knows better, of these use cases remain just in the pilot phase and not become productive in the end. And we exist to change this also. Second, from data silos to sovereign collaboration, ability to share data across organizational boundaries without losing control or IP, like sovereign data sharing, is really the unlock for ecosystem scale intelligence. And I said it earlier, we have a huge amount of data, rich data that we have here by industry, by our industry. And sharing this data and using it together in use cases is key for many applications and for training industrial specific models as well. Third, from generic AI to industrial intelligence. So models that understand really your terminology, your constraints, your physics, is a crucial part of industrial AI. And the fourth pillar, from compliance burden to trust by design. We turn governance into adoption enabler, not only a blocker for implementation projects. And fifth, but not the least, from fragmented actors, we try to create a vibrant ecosystem here with our association where we connect practitioners, researchers, and also technology providers around concrete use cases. And this is also differentiating us a little bit from other associations who are almost focusing on policy making, but we try really to have a bottom-up approach where we jointly work on use cases and share insights that all of you can benefit from this knowledge. And all of this together is not about really building another consortium that produces some white papers. It's really about creating an execution environment where you can move from experimentation to scale, and where sovereign AI becomes practical, industrial, and economically relevant. Because the barriers are real. We have talent gaps, high upfront cost, data silos, regulatory complexity, and every one of these barriers has a structural answer. And so we can join together our intelligence and work together on these topics to increase the value of the European AI, industrial AI ecosystem. So let me close with this. Sovereignty is not about being locked into a regional system. It is about having the power to choose who to partner with, on what terms, and under what conditions. In an era of also geopolitical volatility, this ability to manage technological risk through your own architectural choices is the ultimate competitive advantage. And the vision for, let's say 2030 is clear. Europe must become a leading AI continent where intelligence is embedded in every engineering workflow, every production line, every supply chain decision, where open source solutions providers are the foundation, and where trusted collaboration replaces fragmentation. And finally, where industrial depth is the mode that no hyperscalers can cross. But visions do not implement themselves, of course. And so here's my call to action, 3 words: build, share, and scale. So build sovereign infrastructure and industrial AI capabilities within your organizations, share data, knowledge, and standards across or through trusted ecosystems, like this one here, of course, without losing control over it. And scale from isolated pilots to productive systems that create real economic value. The European industrial base has spent a century building the things the world depends on. Now we must ensure that the intelligence driving those things is equally ours to command. So build, share, scale together. So thank you very much.